If you have ever stalemated a winning game, then this video is for you, because today I'm going to share with you 5 important tips to avoid stalemate in a game. So the first important point is, think before you move to make sure that your opponent has legal moves to play. For example, over here it is white's turn to play, and because white is so sure that he is winning and white's pawn is under attack, so white immediately plays the move king to d6. But this move has now stalemated the game because black's king doesn't have any legal squares to move, because all of these squares are under white's control. So before making any move, always think what would your opponent play. So here, instead of moving the king to d6, white has 3 better options to protect his pawn. First is, he can move the king to c6 to protect this pawn, or he can move the king to e6 to protect this pawn, or third option is, he can move the bishop to h3 square to protect this attacked pawn. So when you're winning, don't be in a hurry to finish the game. Take your time and think before you play. Here is another example. It is white's turn to move, and since black king is able to escape to this square, white thinks, oh, you know what, let me take control of this square. And in a hurry, he plays the move knight to a6, and the game immediately stalemated, because now the black king cannot go to this square, and also these squares are under white's king's control. So what should white play then? Well, white here is already controlling these 2 squares, and so the black king has access to this square. But your bishop is also taking control of this square and your king of this square. So you have very well formed the wall against the black king where he cannot escape. So what should white play? Well, white here should just play a waiting move. So he can play his bishop to any of these squares, for example here, and now it is black's turn. Black has only square where it can go, so king would come here, and now white can give check with his knight. Notice the king cannot go to these squares, so he is forced to go into the corner, and now the bishop would checkmate the black king. Let's move on to tip number 2. Don't waste your time capturing harmless enemy pawns or pieces on the board. For example, here in this situation it is black's turn to play, and black is completely winning this game. But there is an extra pawn of white here, but it is sitting on the second rank, and for it to queen, it has to go all over to the other side of the board, which will take a lot of moves. So this pawn is a harmless pawn. He is not a threat to black right now. So what should black play? Black should just check the white king by coming to any of these squares and checkmate white's game. For example, queen g1, checkmate. But instead what black does is a stupid move. He thinks, oh, you know what, I can easily win this game, but let me first just take this pawn, because it feels good to leave your opponent with only a king on the board. So he plays this move, and now this disastrous move has led to a stalemate in the game, because the white king cannot go to any of these squares. Let's look at another example. Here white is completely winning because white has a queen, rook and a knight against black's knight. And it is white's turn in the game, and this knight is under attack by white's queen. So white just gets very happy and decides to capture this knight. But here the game has got stalemated, because white did not look at black's king, that how trapped it was by white's pieces. Notice the black king cannot come off these 3 squares because it's under the control of white's rook, as well as it cannot go to either of these 2 squares as well, because they are under the control of white's knight. So the capturing of this harmless black piece has led to a stalemate in the game. So when you have a very strong army, and when you can easily checkmate the game by getting your queen to this square, then why you want to waste time in capturing this harmless piece over here? Let's come to the tip number 3. When the enemy king is alone and has reached the edge or the corner of the board, stay alert, because that's where the maximum stalemates happen. So here the enemy king is on the edge of the board, and as you can see, all the squares in front of him are under the control of white's army. That means the black king does not have any squares to go to, but it is white's turn to move, and white totally ignores this situation and is only dreaming about checkmating the black king. So here in this situation, instead of moving his one of the knights and giving some room for the black king to play, he just rather focuses on getting his rook to one of the corners of the board from where it can deliver the checkmate. So white gets his rook over here, and now the game gets stalemated. So what should have white played? White should have moved one of his knights. He can move this knight. For example, if he moves it here, then black king gets some space to move and the game is saved from stalemated. Let's look at one more example. Here black is completely winning, and because the white king is able to escape to this square, black doesn't waste a single second and hastily plays the move bishop to e5, converting a winning game into a stalemate, because white's king now doesn't have any squares where it can go. So then what should black play in this situation? Well, black should just play a waiting move with his rook to c2. And the idea is the white king is anyway not able to go to any of these two squares because they are under black's king's control. So you are allowing white to come on this square. So white comes on this square, and now notice how your rook is beautifully shielding the white king to escape from the box that you have created. So all you have to do is now give check to white king with your bishop. White king has only one move. He goes into the corner, and now rook c8 is a beautiful checkmate. Let's go to tip number 4. Don't be overconfident and overlook things when you are in the winning position. And this is what maximum people do. Look at this position. Any player who is playing with the white pieces would be dancing with joy because it's an easy win for him. So instead of calculating anything, he just hastily plays a move, knight to c5. But now this has stalemated the game. How? Notice the black king doesn't have access to these squares. He doesn't have access to these squares as well. And the only two squares that it had access earlier is now taken over by white's knight. So what should have white played? It's easy. You just have to drive the enemy king to the edge of the board and checkmate with your rooks. So how can white do that? Well, white can first give check with his h8 rook. King comes over here. And now white will play a waiting move. King comes over here. And now it's a checkmate. Let's look at this example. Here it is black's turn to play. Notice how the black king is controlling these two squares and the light square bishop is controlling this square. And now if black gets his bishop to this square, trying to control this square, then obviously the game would be a stalemate. So what should black play? Well, he should just play a waiting move with one of his bishops. So he can get this bishop to any of these squares or this bishop to any of these squares or even this square. Let's say he gets his bishop to this square. Now it is white's turn to play, the only move he will play, and now black can check the king. Black king has only square and that is a corner, and now the light squared bishop can checkmate the game. Let's move on to the tip number 5, but before that, if you find this video helpful, do like this video and subscribe to the channel now. And the tip number 5 is solve a lot of stalemate and checkmate puzzles. Because when you solve a lot of chess puzzles, you will be training your brain to recognize the common checkmate and stalemate patterns, and that will immensely help you to avoid doing a stalemate in your own game. And if you really want to master the technique of not doing stalemates in your game, then I would recommend you to read both these books on stalemate written by the author Grigory Burtayev. To buy both these books, I have given their Amazon links in the description box. And now I would like to end the video with the question of the day. So today's question is, it is black's turn to move, and how can black avoid doing a stalemate in this game? Should he play queen to f2 or should he play queen to f1? Which would be the correct move? Let me know your answers in the comments box, and I'll see you in the next video. Also, do join the membership program of this channel if you want to become a pro chess player. Until then, keep learning, keep practicing.